How you doing, everybody? As you can see by the fall harvest welcome behind me, it's probably time to blow out your in-ground sprinklers. So I'm going to show you how you can do this. It's very simple. Now, I recommend that you test your sprinklers first just by running a manual cycle to ensure that everything is working before you go and blow out the system for the winter. That way you know that everything was good, and in the spring, God willing, everything will also work. You just want to put your system on manual and just go and physically check every head. You can see we have a couple of heads here. They're all spraying. There's one in the corner there, which you can't see from here, but it is certainly spraying. And a couple more in the bushes here. One more up against the stoop way down in there. There's a head in the corner there. And one over in here as well, hiding somewhere in the bushes, and they're all spraying, as is my little drip emitter, but of course the plant died anyway. And yeah, he's trickling out right there. You can see that. Now the next zone is opened up, and you can see everything is spraying along merrily just fine here. So just go around, let it run through the entire cycle, and check every single one of the sprinkler heads on every single one of the zones, just to ensure that everything is working. And then I'll show you how to drain the system and blow it out. Okay, so all of my zones are working properly. So now it's time to drain the system of excess water. Everybody's system is wired and plumbed a little bit differently, but here's how it works on this one. This is the water meter to the house. Comes up here, and this is the main shut-off valve for the sprinklers. So we're going to shut that off, just like that. Now we have to go outside and open a valve out there. Okay, that red handle there is a spigot. On the very left side, I don't know if you can see, is where you'd attach a hose. We need to open that up now, and because we shut the water inside, no water is going to come out of there, or just a couple of dribbles at the very most. Okay, so now we've opened the system, and what we're going to do, that little drain cock right there is what we're going to open. And the hole there is where any water that's in this pipe that goes up and outside is going to come out from. So we need to put a bucket under there, open that, and let it drain into a bucket. Now just dump that out, and the draining portion is complete. Since it should go without saying, I'll say anyway, make sure of course you close that petcock up. And now we're going to blow out the zones. So we need to do a couple of things. First of all is we need to get an air supply. So what you see buried here is a Campbell Hausfeld 15-gallon oil lubricated air compressor. It's tied into another 7-gallon tank, so that gives me 22 gallons of air. How much air you actually need is going to be dependent upon a number of different factors, such as how many zones your system has, how large your property is, and how long you're willing to wait. So for an average house in suburbia with 7 zones, which is actually quite a lot, this is enough air for me. This is the device I use to introduce air into the sprinkler lines. Essentially what we have is that hose bib over there, the spigot, which just takes a regular hose connection like that, and we have to adapt it to air. So all I did is I got 2 air fittings that screw together. You can find this at your local big box store, Harbor Freight, you name it, wherever they'd sell air tools and air fittings and that. This hose is an old washing machine fill hose. You see, it's not that flexible anymore, but it still serves the purpose. And it's just the right diameter to fit this portion of the air fitting. So I just jammed it in there and put a hose clamp on it. Now we just hook our air supply up to that. The other end goes in the system, open the valves up, and blast away. Okay, now I have my air hooked up, and you'll see I added a number of accessories. You do not need to use either of these in order to do this, but it is recommended because it just makes it a lot easier. This way I have a pressure gauge. This is actually a regulator. And yes, I do run full pressure, which is about 120 pounds through it. Other people may say, no way, that's too high, but I've been doing it this way for about 8 years and never had any trouble whatsoever. The other thing I would highly recommend is an inline ball valve. This way you can turn the air on and off without having to connect and disconnect the hoses. If you don't want to buy any of this stuff, that's fine. As long as you use quick disconnects like this, you can simply just plug the hose in to send air through and disconnect it when you're done. Just like that, and the air doesn't come out from here. Having at least the ball valve makes it a lot easier. Now we have to go inside and turn on the first zone. There are two ways you can do this. You can do it electrically, and you can do it manually. Now, personally, if you want to do it manually, that's fine. You'd have to go in the bushes here, at least at this house, pull up this cover, and it's all mucky and dirty and wet and muddy and all kinds of stuff. I don't want to get into that. So you can do it electrically, and it works just as well. Here's how it works. Okay, now back at the sprinkler timer. Everybody's timer is a little bit different, but there should be a very simple way to turn a particular zone on manually. And as you can see, all I'd have to do with this one is put that slider up for zone 1 right there to manual on. And if I put that up like that, in a couple of seconds the valve will actuate, and it will tell us that we are on zone 1 manual. There is no water flowing because we've already shut this valve off, and now we can blast it with air. Okay, we still have that valve over here with the red handle turned on from before. Everything's ready to go. The only problem is there is a sprinkler head right in the bush here, so I have to open this valve up and kind of jump out of the way. So we'll just open that up right here and get out of there, and immediately you'll start hearing water and then air. And as it goes down the line, you'll get more and more air come from all different heads. The air compressor started up. And what you're going to see is a lot of mist here, just like that. This is what you want to see, because this is telling you that you're getting all that air and residual water out of the sprinklers. Now eventually you're going to run out of air, and with any luck these sprinkler heads will actually pop down on you, and at that point you'll know you have to shut the valve off, the air valve off, and let it recharge. But you don't necessarily have to wait that long. You want to have a nice strong supply of air behind it. That one actually just went down there, as did all of these. So I'm out of air. So yeah, the pressure has dropped way down. We're going to shut that off and let that build back up to where it was. Okay, with the air tanks recharged, we'll go and blast it one more time. We shouldn't really see much in the way of mist coming out. I just hear air over here, but you never know. There might be. See, down over here, there's a little more mist coming out. So we'll just let that run. And you can do this 1 time, 2 times, 3 times if you like. It all depends on how big your property is and how big your air compressor is. You may have to do each zone 5 times if you have a little dinky compressor, which is why it pays to have a nice one. Once you're satisfied that there's virtually no water coming out, you can move on to the next zone. Now the reason you blow this out is to prevent the water in the pipes from freezing. If this were a pipe in the ground and it were filled completely with water, especially if when the sprinkler system was run, it went to a low-lying area where water would kind of fill up in the tubing itself. If it gets down to freezing for an extended period of time, when water freezes, it expands, and because it would have nowhere to go, it could potentially crack this pipe. So the idea behind blowing out everything you can is to lessen the amount of water in there. So instead of it being filled all the way up to the very top, maybe there's only a little trickle of water at the bottom. And if that freezes, there's plenty of room for it to expand, and you won't end up cracking any pipes. Okay, so now I've run back inside, put zone 1 off, and put zone 2 on. And now we're going to turn that and blast out zone 2. And you see they pop right up. And in a few moments, we'll get air coming out. There we are. Once again, just check every head. And once you get all the air out, go on to the next zone. And just proceed on for every zone you have. Just do them in order. And once you're satisfied that you've gotten most of the water out, I'll show you how to shut the system down. Okay, now that all the zones are blown out, we'll just disconnect the air hose here. Being that I already had shut this valve off, the hose is no longer under pressure, and we just pull that right out like that. Okay, just disconnected the hose from there, so we're going to shut that off. Just like that, and I actually have this other valve here, so I'll shut that off as well. One more thing we need to shut. And the one last thing that you need to shut off is the timer itself. So just put that right to off there. This one actually tells you that it's off right there. And that's all there is to it, to blowing out your in-ground sprinklers. But don't put your air hose away just yet. Go ahead and blow out the garden hose, especially if you leave it outside for the winter, because that way you can avoid that from freezing and cracking as well. So I thank you very much for watching. Make sure you click like, make sure you click subscribe, and take care. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.